All right, are we ready to get started? Thanks for coming, everybody. Welcome to Entrepreneur Encounters. This is the last one of the semester. So we've got a great speaker today, Arianna Parsons. She's the Executive Director of the Downtown Partnership and also a co-owner of Beck's Coffee. She's going to be talking about the 10 big things she learned from small business.
Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. Let's start this afternoon, or I guess it's still morning. How many of you are here because you're interested in entrepreneurship, starting a business? Yeah? Okay, well that's good. That's good. I like to see that because now it'll be somewhat relevant. So we're going to talk about the 10 big things that I've learned from small business. And this is candid advice from someone who thinks about this stuff all of the time. And I think about it all the time because it's not only what I do for my job, but it's also what I do for my job. Because I both own a small business and I get to help other people start small businesses in downtown Las Cruces for a living, which is pretty fun. The way that I thought that we could structure this conversation is that I'm going to walk you through my journey. This is how I got to where I am. Wherever that is, and then we'll go back and we'll talk about those 10 things that I've learned, but I kind of want to put them in context for you. So we're going to go through the story first, and then we're going to go back and revisit some of these key points. If at any point you have a question, please just raise your hand, interrupt me, yell things out, throw something at me, whatever you need to do to get my attention. I do want this to be a candid conversation. I think that one of the things that in the world of entrepreneurship and small business, sometimes people can be a little guarded about how they do what they do or got where they are. I'm not that way. Ask me anything. Ask me how much money I made last month. I don't care. Ask me whatever you need to ask so that you can advance and get the most out of this talk. So to begin, this is where it began for me. This is the beginning of the journey. This is me at around the age of 7, and I might look innocent. I'm probably trying to figure out how to sell the photographer something. It started really early. I was one of those kids who, I made friendship bracelets, but not to give to my friends. I made friendship bracelets to sell to my friends so that they could give them to their other friends. So it's something that's just it's a part of my makeup, it's who I am, and I have learned to accept it after all of these years that this is how my brain is wired. So if I started at this age, you can imagine that by the time I was ready to go to college, I thought, hey, why don't I go to school for business? Makes sense. So I went to a small liberal arts college on the East Coast called the College of New Jersey, and I went for business. Good school, nothing bad to say about it. I came out of my 4-year degree knowing how to be a middle manager in a really large corporation. I could rock that position. I could tell you all about different management structures, how that works. Unfortunately, it's not really why I went to school for business. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to start my own businesses. The school offered one course in entrepreneurship. It was a semester long, and it taught us how to write a business plan. Now, any of you interested in entrepreneurship, what probably gets you passionate is probably not writing business plans. I enjoy a good budget as much as the next person. I really do. It's what I do as a hobby. Calms me down. It's true. It's weird, but it's true. But that doesn't mean that entrepreneurship is equivalent. It's not synonymous with a solid business plan. So I left knowing that I didn't know what I needed to know. So during this whole time during college, I was one of those kids who had to work. I worked 4 different jobs at a time through college. Most of those were as a server or waitress. I worked at 3 Zagat-rated restaurants on the East Coast. The first was the Brothers Moon in Hopewell, New Jersey, then the Ferry House in Princeton. Great places. The Ferry House, I was there from the very beginning. They're still there, going strong. The Ferry House has closed, but the chef has opened some new places. And then finally I worked at this place called Rat's Restaurant. It is on the grounds for sculpture in this town called Hamilton, New Jersey. Nobody knows about it. 30-acre sculpture grounds. It is the restaurant itself that you see in the background is the replica of a chateau in Giverny, France, where Monet painted his water lilies. We actually had a replica, like the water lily garden there. That's what I looked at every day. It was really beautiful. This place is owned by Seward Johnson of Johnson & Johnson family money. And he also has an atelier where he does all of this really famous sculptures out of that space. That's Seward there. And so I met Seward, and then I met this man here with me, Jared Machinga. He was my landlord at the time, and Seward was my boss. Seward and I became his favorite server. I gave him a hard time, and he liked that. I think it was something about a popover. I don't know. The little rolls. I gave him a hard time. I became his favorite server. He used to have me go in to cater all of his private parties with him. He had also opened a small cafe in a town called Hopewell, not far away. And as I was graduating with my degree in business, he decided that he was tired of his cafe. You can do that when you're a billionaire. You can start a business, and then 3 months later, you can be bored of it. It's totally legit, which is why we all want to be billionaires, I think. So he said to me, do you want to buy my cafe? I will sell it to you for $30,000. You have 48 hours. So here I am, 22, 23 years old. And I said, yeah, I definitely want to do that. So I went to my landlord and said, hey, you want to give me $30,000? And he said, yeah, okay. So, weird, yes. Now, this is not one of the 10 points that I'm going to talk about today, but you should know this, and I shouldn't even have to say this. Don't take money from just anybody who wants to give you money. It's not the best idea. Also, read contracts. Also, a really smart idea. Even if you think you know somebody, read a contract. So, I bought this place, this cafe, and opened it with my landlord. Weird. And we ran it for about a couple of years. And then when it went south, because my landlord he didn't know the restaurant industry. He didn't realize, this whole 3 years to make a profit thing or to break even. So when that went south, not only did I not have an income anymore, but I didn't have a place to live because he was my landlord. Not a good situation, right? So, still, really good experience. So then, down the street from me, there were these 3 Princeton, Harvard, and Princeton grads and Harvard grad who bought this old chocolate factory, and they started a designer breath mint company. Kid you not, it was weird, just all weird. So they were called Oral Fixation Mints, and I went to work for them. And I was their kind of customer service person, and they got some good play in Manhattan and at all the clubs because they had these really sleek, cool packages that once you were done with the breath mints, you could actually put your credit cards into and just slip it into your pocket and go out to the bars and to the clubs at night. So kind of this dual purpose. It was all about bringing this aesthetic value to these everyday objects, and it was very. It was fun. It was very Manhattan. So then after I left that company, I moved to Missouri for a little while. That's where I'm from. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and I worked for a really large nonprofit there called the Koreatown Youth and Community Center. It's 6 sites, multi-million-dollar budget, and one of the crowning achievements over there was getting to host an event at the Walt Disney Concert Hall, their big annual event that raised $625,000 in an evening. Really fun. So that's what I did out in Los Angeles. Moved back to Missouri, because that's what you do, and I got into I switched gears, got out of this whole thing for a while, and then I went into kind of politics. I ran a campaign for this gentleman, Sean Spence, for representative, and I got into lobbying for the international organization CARE and did some lobbying in Washington, D.C. on their behalf, and that was really good. interesting time, and it was good to switch gears. When I got back, I had an idea for an app. Now, this is before the phrase "there's an app for that" was even created. We didn't have, there was like 4 apps. I think there was 4 on a phone. And so I wanted to start my own company, but I wanted to give people the power to really choose how to spend their money. So my concept was that if you have this database on this app on your phone, and then you can filter it so that you match your values and it filters your results. So you're shopping wisely, you're spending your money wisely. That was the concept. That was in Missouri, and then I moved here to New Mexico on a whim. It was kind of like, I'm going to put all my stuff in a car, and I'm going to move to New Mexico, and I'm going to live this bohemian lifestyle, because that's what I thought you guys did here. And it sounded really good. I'm just going to, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I don't even think I brought forks. I think I just had chopsticks when I moved here. So, because I don't know, that's what I thought New Mexico was all about. I'd never visited here before. So I moved there and worked a couple of places. And then things started to happen really fast. My bohemian lifestyle, I met my husband, we bought a house, we got married, we bought a business, we hired employees, I took a job as a full-time executive director, and then we had a baby. So this is my baby. He deserves his own slide. He gets his whole
one baby
slide.
or 4? One baby?
Just one, but he's so special. He gets 4 pictures. I had him 6 weeks ago. And so everything happened really fast. And I do not have a bohemian lifestyle. And I have something like 37 forks. I have so many forks. So now we're going to go back. So that kind of brings you up to where we are today. So now we're going to go back and we're going to put some of these lessons. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I learned in each of these steps, and we're going to go back and revisit some of these things so I can put these things in context for you. My number 1 piece of advice is know what you are asking others to do for you. If you ever plan to have employees, understand what you are asking them to do for you. Ideally, we would all work every position, so we would have a really good, solid understanding. So in my case, I have Beck's Coffee. I need to know what it is that I'm asking my baristas to do. And ideally, I've made my living as a barista before, so I can really sympathize with what I'm asking them to do. Not only should I know their job better than they know it, but I should be able to recognize when they're doing it well. So know what you're asking them. And I'm really, really big on employee management, so we'll actually revisit that a little bit in a minute here. Number 2. So the other thing that I did really well is that I should have done is I worked in a startup. Unfortunately, I did it after I had my first startup. I recommend that you do it before you have your first startup. Work in a startup so that you get that, ground floor, know what it is to have a business before you make that commitment. Because no matter what anyone tells you, it is harder and more challenging than you will ever know. And I wrote an article once saying that it was like having a baby. It is way easier to have a baby. Babies need 4 things. They're like hot, poopy, tired, or hungry. Business is, if only it was that cut and dry. If it was that clear, that would be really, really awesome. But it's just not. So even if you think that you like it, you might try it out with somebody else with their resources and their time and see if it's a really good fit for you. Number 3, get political. And by that, I don't mean that you have to go in politics. And I certainly don't mean that you should get in political discussions on Facebook. Don't do that. But do learn about politics. Learn how the system works. Because I guarantee you, at some point in your business, some legislation will affect the work that you do, and you need to know who to talk to, how to talk to them, and how to affect change. So if you work for a political campaign and you can get to know the players, or if it can give you the lingo that you need to talk to someone, do it. Take that opportunity. Volunteer your time to get that knowledge, because, yeah, either on the local level, state level, or federal level, they all kind of work the same way once you know the process, but you do need to know the process. Number 4, some ideas need some time to incubate. You shouldn't jump into every idea the minute that you get it. For instance, if there are only 4 apps out there, don't try to be the 5th app if you don't know anything about apps. Just not a good idea. So in this case, when apps were being made, I contacted a company who made apps. They were going to charge me $40,000 to make the app. That should have been a clue to me why I shouldn't move forward with this idea at this time, because I didn't have $40,000. What I ended up doing is working with a college student who was learning coding, and we made it for $300, but then I had to market the whole thing, and so that was kind of a non-starter. I refinanced my car, got about $8,000 to start that company. It was fun. I got to travel all over and try and get people to participate, but that's all it was. It was fun. It was a hobby. So even though this was not a success, there are some things about this idea that I still like, and what I will probably do is mine this idea, take what was good out of it, take what was bad out of it, and apply it to something further down the road. You should always mine your own ideas. Don't just, if you fail at something, you can't just let it drop. You need to find what was good, what made you so passionate about it, and apply that to the next concept. Right now, I probably have 7 fully formed concepts in my head that are incubating, that just need the right time for me to move forward with them. Maybe at a time where I don't have 2 full-time jobs and an infant. I don't know, maybe. Probably, knowing me, I will still move forward anyway. Okay, so number 5, find the yin to your yang. You don't have to necessarily marry the yin to your yang. I recommend it. I mean, if you're attracted to them, but you don't necessarily have to. But it is really important that you find somebody who can complement your skill set. My husband, Tyrell, is everything that I am not in business, and it's worked out really well for us because I am big picture thinker. I want to be able to come up with something and tell someone to do it, and then I need someone who does it. So we call my husband the doozer because he does all the things that I ask him to do. He is process-oriented, he is detail-oriented, he's the things that I am not. That's the only reason that Beck's Coffee is what it is today, because he's really focused on creating a really solid product, and he's got that attention to detail that makes it happen. So no matter what your skill set, no matter how fabulous you are, you don't have every skill set equal. You can't equally be good at everything all the time. So you do need someone, even if it's an accountant, find someone who's going to provide you with checks and balances so that you can move forward and you can know that your skill set is being strengthened by someone else's skill set. Number 6, have a plan, but be flexible. Yes, business plans are important. They absolutely are. I think that anyone here who's in business would yell at me if I said, don't ever write a business plan, just forge ahead, willy-nilly, just go for it. But that's kind of, so business plan in my mind, you have to think it through. You have to think through your finances, your concept, you have to think through your product, your lines of distribution, and your marketing, all of those wonderful things. But at its best, A small business is a continuing conversation with your community. There's this back and forth that has to happen. So there's some level of flexibility that has to occur, and you can't be just so rigid that you're holding on like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take that account, because that doesn't happen until year 3, and it's only year 2. You have to free yourself up a little bit from that. Okay, so start small. At some point you do have to start. After all of this planning, you do have to start. You can start small, you can start microscopically, but you do have to start. We started Beck's with $2,500 of my husband's money. And our concept, so we bought the company from a woman named Beck, and we found this little rock house in our neighborhood, and we were just going to be a roasting house. At the time when we bought the company, it was a roaster in an old storage shed with no plumbing, and it was really cold in the winter and really uncomfortable. So we said, hey, this is a brilliant idea. Let's move the roaster into a place that has plumbing and heat. And so we saw this little house just around the corner from where we lived in the Mesquite Historic District, and we said, okay, let's just move the roaster in there. And so we moved the roaster in, and then people keep knocking on the door. And they're like, so brew us some coffee. We're like, oh, that really wasn't our plan. We were just going to roast it and sell it at the farmer's market. So then we said, well, we don't really even have tables and chairs. And they said, well, here's some tables and chairs. Now brew us some coffee. And so we said, okay, we can do that. So all of the furniture in the beginning was all donated from folks we know who went and raided their storage sheds and things like that. And lo and behold, kind of took off, and now we employ several people, and we're open 7 days a week, and we still have our farmers market stand. So we started really microscopically, and we allowed the community to tell us what they wanted. That's that flexibility component, and it worked really well for us. So, okay, this is when we get back to people. The people that you hire. If you can't manage people, don't manage people. Don't try it. I mean, you can try it, but if you're not good at it, or if you don't like it, hire somebody else to do it, because it is just too important, and there are too many bad managers out there. There really are. So it is worth, if you are trying to build something, your employees are everything that you've got. They represent you, they're doing all the grunt work, you're running around like crazy, nobody really knows what you're doing all day, but you're really doing something 24 hours a day. So hire someone who likes managing people, someone who, at the best, your employees come in and they're happy to come to work. That's what you want. If you are the type of person who can't see your employees as human beings who have their own needs and their own wants, then your employees are going to come to work and they're going to be miserable, and that will be reflected in your product, in your customer service, and in every aspect of your business. And as a startup, you won't be able to survive that for the most part. And pay them well. That's the other thing, pay them well. That's Lexi invented. Okay, 9. That's another picture of my baby, another picture of my baby. The work-life divide, it's non-existent. This is me at my office with my baby sleeping on my lap. I just had a meeting over at the coffee shop for a business for downtown where my husband was there and he dropped off the baby. So I'll go home tonight, and while I am putting my son to sleep, the phone will ring and I will talk about business. It's 24 hours a day, and it's okay, because you're going into small business or entrepreneurship because you love it, because you're passionate about it. And why not just allow all of those things in your life that you're passionate about to blend? If you put up these false walls. If you try to put up these false walls, they're just going to fight you the whole time. Things are going to try and bleed through, and you're going to get frustrated, and you're going to get upset because, darn it, the phone didn't stop ringing at 5 o'clock, and your kid didn't start crying until 5 o'clock. It's just not how it works. So let it all blend together, go with it. It's crazy, but if you're passionate about it, it really is that much more fun. And number 10, you define your own idea of success. And it isn't a monetary number. At no point will you ever reach this magic number that you've made up in your mind and say, oh, now I feel successful. That worked. You really have to determine what your life looks like. What does a successful life look like for you in business? For me, it's being able to hold conversations like this with my community members. It is going into my coffee house and knowing almost everyone there and being able to have a nice conversation. And I get to take my son, and then I take him down to my office downtown, and we walk up and down the streets together, and then I get to talk to young entrepreneurs about where to start their business, because that's fun for me. It really is a good outlet for me, because that way at least I don't have to start all the business. I can help other people start the businesses. My husband's really happy for that job for me. And then we walk around the park in Central Park. We have a nice little house in the Mesquite Historic District, and it's just a lovely quality of life. It doesn't mean that we're not still, hoping that the coffee shop doesn't do better financially. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't love to open 3 more businesses. There are all these things, but ultimately, what my life looks like, what a successful life looks like for me, is what I've created. And it's really fun. And at no point was that tied to a dollar. So that's 10 of the things that I learned. Don't get drunk in business luncheons. I should tell you that. I shouldn't have to tell you that. Don't do that, guys. Do ask for money. Find people, but again, really think it through who you're asking money from, and sign contracts after a lawyer's review. I'm going to say that again. Yeah, that's what I have for you. Now I'm open for questions. Please ask me anything.
How would you characterize the role in this success so far at the coffee shop of having purchased a brand that already had some cachet established, at least in that downtown kind of part?
Okay, so the question is how much it's helped us to buy a business that already had a name. For us, I think it was really important. I think that it wasn't a business that had it's not internationally renowned. It's locally known. What we got with the name was training. So Beck actually stayed on for a month and trained my husband to be a coffee roaster, and we got the equipment. And those are things that we quite simply wouldn't have. There's no way that we would be where we are today if we hadn't had those things. So for us, it worked out really well. I don't know that we should have purchased it for the amount that we purchased it for. We should have negotiated that one down a little bit. But it probably got us about 2 years ahead. We got to come into the game 2 years ahead of where we would have been otherwise. And had we had to struggle for those 2 years, I don't know that we would have been in business. So for us, it was very important.
It's really inspiring, like how you came from New Jersey, New York, and even though you lost the money, you started a business, you had to place a company to get the new business next door. So what way like kept you inspired? Always like you've been like twice in failed business, and now you're a successful businessman. But like that process, what kept you inspired?
Again, it's how my brain works. I could fail 30 times and I would start a 31st business just because there's nothing else that excites me. And there's something about the lack of resources that's also really exciting and really challenging. I don't know, if someone gave me like $10 million and was like, hey, open a business. Okay, I would like that very much, but it would be different because I like the challenge of starting from like $0 and seeing what you can build up. I mean, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like it in the world. It's really, really fun to do. Just my brain. Anyone else?
What advice do you have for raising entrepreneurs?
Again, start small. That's the big thing, and that's what I work with downtown all of the time. I can tell almost immediately how successful someone's going to be when we've talked for about a half an hour. I can tell. I think it's really difficult for entrepreneurs because we tend to be really big thinkers, and to have all of these like, oh, and then I'm going to do this, and then it's going to snowball, and it's going to go over here, and then I'm going to expand. I'm going to have 7 locations, and to take all of that passion and that excitement for your concept and bring it down to something that you can really get started, and you can get it started in such a way that if you make a mistake, it doesn't cost you everything. If you start really, really big, mistakes get really, really costly. So start very small, very reasonable, smaller than you even think. I mean, you're going to be like, really, that's not even a thing at that point. But let it start from that. Selling friendship bracelets to your friends, seeing if they like them, and then let the kind of that give and take with the community. But let it kind of organically grow. It's going to take you in directions that you never thought that it would take you. If you stay flexible, then you grow it, and then you have that success. Anyone else?
You said you had 7 ideas incubating. Do you willing to share any of your ideas for future businesses?
Yeah, I have lots of ideas. There's so much happening right now with different uses, alternative spaces. I love what's happening with these shipping container ideas as incubator spots. I think that's a really fun, cool concept that could work really well downtown. My husband and I hope to have a new location with a new concept open by the end of the year, also downtown. I don't know if I've mentioned this, but downtown, and downtown. If you want to open a business downtown, come talk to me because we need those we need them. And so most of mine really are focused on the world of retail, restaurant, food service. I like those concepts because to me they're these nice neat boxes where you get to put an idea and then fully form that idea, and then you get to go on to the next one. So that's fun for me. Anyone else? Yes?
You said you could tell in 30 minutes if someone's being successful. Could you expand on that, say what characteristics you believe lead to successful entrepreneurs?
Sure. So again, it's how realistic is your concept? How much research have you done? There are a lot of people who will come in and they'll kind of go, I want this, I'm going to do this thing. And it's a little bit of this, and it's a little bit of this over here. And I say, okay, well, what's your financial situation? I was hoping you could tell me. I get that a lot, actually. Do you want to give me money? yes, just because I'm nice, but then there are people who come in and they have like this template of their logo that's fully formed. You can tell when an idea has actually fully formed in someone's brain, and they can walk themselves through their space. They can walk through the customer experience, and that's when I know, okay, this is someone that I have to start working with right now, and I have to get them downtown because they can go other places and be successful. So how do I sell them on downtown and find them a space right now? So one of the worst things I think that you can do is talk too much about an idea to other people before it's fully formed in your own brain. So there is that flexibility component that has to happen, but everybody else is going to have something to say about your concept. So, and I can tell when too many cooks, have been in the kitchen. And so you need to really define it in your own head, get through all of that, and then take the next step. Because I think one of the things that happens is if you go too early to someone like me, and it's not fully formed yet, and I'm not really excited about it because I can tell it's not fully formed, then that's going to be hard on you, and it's going to dampen your spirits. And what could have been a really fantastic idea, had it been more fully formed, might not get off the ground. Not that I try and squash people's ideas if I don't like them. Anyone else? Yes.
So when you say you help people find places downtown to start their business, how do you, do it according to use prices or where the price for the type of business?
Yeah, a little bit of that. So through the Downtown Las Cruces Partnership, what I do is I work with all stakeholders involved in downtown. So that means I work with business owners, building owners, developers, the city, the state, community members, different groups that are, activist groups. And the whole goal is just to build a vibrant downtown city center. One of the things that we need downtown is private business and private investment. We need it on a really large scale where people are building multi-story building developments with retail on the ground floor and housing above, big entertainment complexes. But we also need the current space that we have downtown to be activated space. So I don't know the last time that you were downtown, but after 5 o'clock, it can be pretty quiet. And it's something that we are actively working on, but part of that is just all of those spaces all of those buildings and storefronts that face Main Street, we need to fill those up with the right businesses. And through our master planning process and community involvement, we know that has to be alcohol, food, alcohol, retail, and entertainment. That's what people want to see downtown. So I pretty much know every single building inside and out, and who owns it, how much they're asking. One of the strange things about downtown, though, is that none of the spaces are listed, but they're all really for sale. So it makes it a little difficult. Or if they are listed, then there's plenty of room for negotiation. So when people come in, I sit down, we go over their concept, and then I start to make the introductions and introduce them to the property owners. I don't negotiate real estate or rents or anything like that, but I do make all of those critical connections. Absolutely. Anyone else? Okay. Well, there's another picture of my baby because he's really cute. And that's all I've got for you today. Thanks so much for being here.